Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills as we get ready for the divisional playoff game. Bills and Ravens, 6:30 on Sunday evening at Highmark Stadium. I am Adam Benini, WGRZ TV. Sal Mayorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, as always, on Wednesdays at the Field House. Practice has just wrapped up, and we're happy to welcome back once again, a third time, I think, this season, Jerry Ostroski, former Bills offensive lineman, overreaction Buffalo, dialed in with this team. Jerry, great to have you back, man. Thanks for your time once again.
Appreciate it, fellas. I'll try to be as good as the great John Fina. I don't have any promises, though.
Geez, Jerry, I've talked to you more this year than I did your last year with the Bills, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Maybe both of you, man. Exactly.
Both of you guys.
Good to have you back.
Both of you guys do a great job. And really, as you had earlier this year, John, as you know, I mean, terrific inside stuff, X's and O's, which is so vital in this matchup this week. How the Bills are going to try and deal with this team with that 35-10 week 4 loss that took place or whatever. It's obviously a different situation now in terms of the health of Buffalo and the dynamics of this matchup, really with both teams. But it's a heavy lift. There's no question about it. So, Jerry, we're going to get to that. Thanks again. Sal, as you can see, as I mentioned, is coming to us from One Bills Drive. What's the latest? Any news out of there today leading into this game, Sal?
No, I mean, they're doing their usual Wednesday walkthrough, so we don't get to watch any of the practice, obviously, and then there's really not much that comes out of a walkthrough. He talked about injuries at noon today, and the Bills, you know, it's incredible for a divisional round game that they're this healthy. I mean, even Brandon Condriton, he said, is probably good to go. So they'll have the return man back this week. Alec Anderson was really the only other guy that they were concerned about, but he finished the game on Sunday, and he's going to be good. So the only guy who's going to be missing time and maybe the game is Ray Davis, the backup, the third-string running back, which, let's face it, Ray Davis has been a nice player for them, but that's certainly an injury that they could work past in a game like this. So they're in incredible shape for a divisional round playoff game.
Jerry, I would ask you just to kind of open this, because it's been a while since we've talked to you. Based on everything you've seen from both of these teams, what's your take initially on this matchup? How do you size this thing up?
Well, I think we've put so much emphasis upon our defense, right? The Buffalo Bills defense. Can they handle the running game with Derrick Henry? Can, you throw Lamar Jackson in there, that whole mix? And we obviously did not play well against Baltimore the first time around, considering we had 3 major starters missing from that game. Mm-hmm. We had Christian Benford out, we had Milano out, and then also Taron Johnson, who many say is the key cog, the key piece to this defense when you're trying to run a 4-2-5. We'll see what happens this week. We'll see if McDermott and Bobby Babbage Jr. decide to get Dorian Williams off the sideline and get him involved in a 3-linebacker, more traditional 4-3 set against Baltimore's big sets, because I don't think those guys did that defense any favors the last time they played as far as how they matched up with the physicality and the big sets that Baltimore came out in. But really my emphasis this week, and I might be different than most, but I feel this defense is what it is, guys. We know what it does. It has opportunities sometimes to take the ball away, and it does, obviously being the number one turnover team in the NFL. They have games where they play really, really well. They have some games they don't. But the thing that stands out to me the most, the last time they played Baltimore, was the fact this offense, in Josh Allen especially, were basically inept. They did not play well at all against Baltimore. You think about this offensive line, guys, and just how much praise they've gotten. Mm-hmm. Gave up 13 sacks in the regular season. 3 of those sacks were against Baltimore in that game. So almost a third of what they gave up in the season was in one game. So I think the Baltimore's going to score points. I don't think that is anything that would shock anybody. But this offense has to match point for point, and this offense, to win this game, this offense is going to have to perform much, much better than it did in the first matchup.
All right, so you brought up a point that I want to raise with you. Since you played offensive line, you know that a defense can lock in to what the other team is doing, right. Especially that they've already played this team before. Now, flip that over, though, Jerry, to the defensive side. You raised the point about maybe they have to use 3 linebackers. Is that a problem for a Bills team that has played this nickel defense for years and years to suddenly become something that they usually aren't? And then you're taking a guy like Taron Johnson off the field if you decide to do that. Is that a wise choice if the Bills decide to do it?
Is it a wise choice to stand in front of a car that's coming at you 100 miles an hour and not get out of the way? I mean, there's a lot of gray areas. I think they can play a 4-3 defense just fine. I think that's one thing we've now all of a sudden been blessed with because of injury. We've got playing experience and depth at the linebacker spot. And me personally, I've been beating my chest the last few weeks. I think it's silly that Dorian Williams doesn't get actual more game time. He is a very good linebacker. He runs really, really well, gets guys on the ground. So, which is also a key component when playing a guy like Lamar. The guys that are going to have to do some things differently would be the back end. Obviously, there'll be some things coverage-wise. And I guess maybe, Sal, the biggest thing when they all sit in that defensive meeting room around that long table that they have to come up with is, are we good enough? Is it more of a liability coverage-wise to play 3 linebackers? And are we going to be somewhat okay playing the run if we play Taron Johnson? I think what's the lesser of two evils? Where do we feel like we're a better team? Now, obviously, they have just lived in that 4-2-5. But, you saw Taron Johnson come downhill and make a big hit this weekend and had to go out for a while with the neck. Now, I know it was a little fluky-ish or whatever. He led with his head. But still, you're talking about a guy of his size coming downhill sometimes to have to tackle a guy like Derrick Henry with a full head of steam. I think they mix it up this week. I think you will see some of the 4-3 stuff, maybe more in just definitely blatant run sets. But I do believe this defense has to do some of that and mix things up, because what they did in the first matchup was unfair to that defense against what Baltimore was doing on the field.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go. I mean, what's the answer, right? Because you look earlier in Lamar's career. I mean, the Bills, by and large, defensively had done a fairly good job, in taking care of Lamar Jackson. But then you added Derrick Henry into the mix, where Jackson brings so much athleticism and creativity, mobility, all of those things offensively, and then they can just switch gears and kind of pound you with a traditional running game with a guy like Henry. I mean, that's the kind of the dimension added that it's so difficult to defend. I mean, what's the best way for this Bills defense to handle this in a game like this?
Right.
And maybe what you suggested, maybe some disguise, maybe try and keep them guessing a little bit. Pre-snap might be important.
I'll probably get flambéed for this, but I have no problem with that. I think that the Baltimore Ravens looked at their football team the exact same way that the Philadelphia Eagles looked at their football team, and they said, what do we have to do to get over the hump? And I think both of them felt that they needed to bring a premier runner in to take pressure off of a quarterback that maybe could be streaky in the passing game, but is not a pure passer. And Lamar Jackson's numbers in the passing game are usually in the regular season. He has not fared well in the postseason. And I think both of those teams knew they had some issues at quarterback. As good as both of them can be, still there's some streakiness there. They went out and got those premier backs and took pressure off of them. And now you see two teams that have done incredibly well this season. And, some people feel are favorites to win it all. But, this – defensively, I really think that they have to do some stuff, and I said it earlier, but they just got to do some stuff to give that defense some help against some of these power sets. But when I look at Baltimore and I say, okay, if I do get into a 4-3 defense or whatever, how do we handle this? To me, anyway, especially with Zay Flowers, is a question mark. And I don't know if you guys did you bring that up when we first started? His health.
It was before we rolled, but as we record this, he, I guess, was limited in practice, and it's a we'll see from Harbaugh on his status.
Right. So even if he does come back, I don't expect him to be 100% Zay Flowers. But to me, anyway, in the passing game, the guy you have to take away is Mark Andrews. You've got to take Mark. He makes all. It's funny. These two teams mirror one another, Philadelphia and Baltimore. In Philly, you talk about Smith, you talk about A.J. Brown, but the guy that is the go-to in pressure times is Goddard. And these guys like to throw to their big physical tight ends. If you can somehow control Andrews and slow him down, I think that gives the Bills a much bigger hope on defense. So If you can be in a 4-3 and do that, fine. If you feel you can't, you have to sit in a 4-2-5, okay, do it. But I don't know. I just old school O-line guys, it's just we tend to be simplistic. And when they put a bunch of big dudes in and they're like, we're going to hand it off to 250-pound back, or if he might even be bigger, man, you got to give your guys some weapons to help them. And I think it would be a good thing for the Bills to mess around with that this week.
All right, so Jerry, their offensive line is strong. I mean, Linderbaum's one of the best centers in the NFL. I think he's a Pro Bowl guy. They got 9 guys, so I forget who actually is going. There's so many of them. But if this game, I think that one of the biggest keys, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this, the Bills' defensive line just has to play a great game. They got killed in that first game. We talk all about they didn't have Bernard, they didn't have Milano, and they didn't have Taron Johnson in that second level, but they got killed up front. That's why Derrick Henry had the bulk of his 199 yards. What has to happen with this defensive line to maybe dictate what happens in this game?
Sal, you make a great point, and the problem with this and playing Baltimore is you say, yeah, we got to pressure Lamar. Well, Lamar has escapability. Do we have pure enough pass rushers up front to rush 4 and get pressure? Probably not. I don't think we necessarily can do that on a regular basis. So you have to dial up blitzes and things like that and games and everything. When you start running games, you start getting out of rushing lanes. You saw last week, Bo Nix was able to get out of the pocket some and had some really good runs. We can get Bo Nix on the ground. Some of those runs that he had, if it was Lamar Jackson, I don't know if we get him on the ground. So it's like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? So I think it's going to be imperative. Babbage is going to have to really disguise. If he wants to bring pressure, he's going to have to do some things to hide it. But I think you're 100% correct. Guys like Groot, guys like Von Miller, and Von's trending up. Is it a rocket? No, but he's definitely trending up as far as playing better. That's one area on this Baltimore offensive line. If you have a spot, maybe you can get some pressure, even though he's performed well this year, is Rosengarten, the right tackle, is a rookie. He is a rookie from Washington. Actually saw him play in college when they played Tulsa. My son brushed against him some. He's a very capable pass blocker, but you look at the other guys, maybe that's your spot that you can pick on. But, yeah, definitely you want to get pressure, but then again, you've got the Lamar Jackson factor. And then, Baltimore – they can do what we did to Denver last week, which was a shock to me. I didn't think we'd run the ball the way we did last week against them. I thought we'd run it. I didn't think we'd have over 100 yards with just James Cook in the first half, which is more than they gave up in the season, which was 96 yards a game, third in the NFL. But when I look at this, and if we are getting to them, then Baltimore has the best pass blocking scheme in the league, which is continue to hand the ball off to the tailback, which is how we neutralized Denver's number 1 pass rush last week. We just handed it off. So if we're not passing it, you can't rush the passer. So it'll be a really big chess game. And this to me is kind of that. This is a big defining game for Bobby Babbage Jr. I think this is a tall task, but I will say this: things trend well for the Bills in teams that play another team for the second time. There's really not much more Baltimore can do that we have not seen. I mean, and the NFL game is such a matchup game. It's about matchups and things, and maybe a couple wrinkles a game, but it's not like you're going to go ahead and just blow this game plan up and bring out something new. So they've seen it. They know what they've got in front of them. But again, I think it's a big week for Babbage. I think it'll tell a lot.
How about Buffalo from an offensive standpoint? And Jerry, you kind of went right where I was going to go next in terms of what they were able to do against Denver. I mean, that was just that executed so well in terms of the game plan, and Joe Brady being able to have success with the run, obviously control time of possession. I mean, it was so lopsided, right? And then that kind of opened things up through the air as the game went on. I don't know. We all know how this Baltimore defense is built, how heavy they are up front, right? I mean, I don't know that the Bills are necessarily going to have that luxury. And then you look at the Baltimore secondary, and really the thing on that side of the ball that got them next level was they figured things out in that secondary, made some changes midseason. Right. I still feel like this is a defense where Allen can have success through the air and these receivers in the passing game with all the options that he has. But, I mean, talk to me about maybe how that Baltimore defense has evolved and what you see maybe as a successful plan of attack from a Buffalo offense.
I think, it's funny is now that I remember it, I think the first time I was on with you guys was before that first Baltimore game that we played. And Sal and I talked about this guy who I think we both feel is the key to that defense is Hamilton, the safety.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a defense that has been the same since Tony Siragusa lined up in it, since Sam Adams lined up in it, since Ray Lewis, since Ed Reed. They thrive and they pride themselves on physicality and aggression. And the way you go against physicality and aggression is you have to also be the bully as well and bully those groups and show them that, hey, the things you want to do, you're not going to be super successful with it all the time. And I do believe, again, this is a game where Bills are going to have to run the football. They're going to have to get into situations where they can play action. They're going to have to be able to do those things. And it's a lot like they just did this week against Denver. And I'll tell you guys, it's been amazing the maturation of that group up front and just one couple moves and how much better they are and what Cromer's done with that crew. And, they're a perfect mix. I mean, you look at the right side of the line and you've got Spencer Brown and Torrance who are old school. The term in offensive line run play is vertical displacement, which is moving guys from point A to point B, getting them back off the ball, north-south. Then you take a guy like McGovern, who's long and athletic, does have some physicality to him, but he's much better running around and stuff, has that Kent Hole feel to him. Edwards has progressively gotten better, even though he gave up the sack last week. He's progressively gotten better as the season goes on. And then you got the enigma at left tackle. You got Deion Dawkins, who is like Rod Carew when your coach in Little League said, I know you want to emulate Rod Carew's batting stance, but please don't, because everything he does is not proper, is not sound. Deion does some things with his feet, does some things technique-wise that'll blow your mind. John and I talk about it all the time. We'll text each other in game, like, did you see what Deion did there? But he is an absolute freak athlete, and it works for him. And kudos to Cromer. He allows him to do what works for him. So again, like I did last week, the first thing I'm going to watch when I turn this game on Sunday night is those five guys up front. If they're successful, and success is not ripping off 10, 12, 14, 15-yard runs all the time. Success might be 3 yards a pop for a little bit until you start getting things going, then you pop one. But they've got to continue to establish the running game to set up the play action pass, especially against a hugely aggressive defense like the Ravens have, and guys like Hamilton in that defensive backfield that likes to stick their nose in the backfield.
All right, first of all, I just have to commend you for the old school Rod Carew reference. I'm not sure 10 people out there are even going to get that, but that was friggin' awesome. So thank you for the baseball guy. That was awesome. What I wanted to ask you about is the Bills' run game, I think, is so much better now than it was the first time they played these guys.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about the game script that night or the score. I'm just saying the way they have developed their running game throughout this season, I think they are at such an elite level from where they were at the start of the year. Now, the problem, Jerry, is they're going against – you said Denver was number 3 last week. This is the number 1 run defense team. And this is – I mean, Zach Allen's a great player, and, Benito and all these guys. These Ravens are big people in that front seven. How are the Bills going to be able to find success against guys like Michael Pierce, 355, Mbukwe, he's probably 350. Right. What do you do?
This goes to the other half of, I said earlier, I talked about vertical displacement. Then the other nouveau term in offensive line run play is horizontal displacement. And that's what the Bills do so well. And what horizontal displacement is you take your steps and you fit up, you cover your man up, and you're not necessarily worried about driving them back off the ball. You're moving along the line of scrimmage and creating running lanes by movement. And that's what the Bills do really, really well. They're so athletic. They can cover guys up, move guys horizontally, and then you got your creases that way. So you might see this team run what we would call more outside zone as opposed to what they call duo or, forcing double teams inside, more outside zone where it's track type blocking, where I take my step, and if a guy comes into my lane, I take him. If not, I go to second level. And you'll see them use some of that. You might see them do some gap scheme stuff, although huge defensive linemen usually are good against gap scheme stuff, which is your trapping game. The Bills run what they call a dart play, which is the single tackle pulls. You'll see Dion pull by himself quite a bit and things like that. I think you'll see the Bills go to a lot of their horizontal stuff, and then you'll also see some stuff they've done earlier this year, and they've had tons of success on it. We called it some different things, but you'll see the line of scrimmage. There won't be any pulling or anything, but you'll see the line of scrimmage say move right, and James Cook will kind of take that one or two steps to the play where it all looks like it's going, and then it's designed to hop back behind the center or backside guard and almost get that defense that's highly aggressive moving, and then they cut back behind it and use their motion against them. So I think that's what you'll see this week. You'll see a lot of outside zone, a lot of stuff where they'll get those guys moving horizontally as opposed to just being able to physically grab them and push them back, north-south, just because they are so big. And then, of course, again, you got Josh Allen, who can do a lot of stuff with his feet. You look at the last game, Sal and Adam, they rushed for 81 yards. They only threw for 155. And it was funny. I don't know if you remember that game, even though they scored a touchdown a quarter, except for the second, they scored 2 touchdowns. But in the third quarter, the Bills came out and they started getting momentum. They scored some points. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, they're in this. And then for whatever reason, they decided to run the quarterback throwback. We have the fumble, and then all momentum is gone, and then the game's over with. There's a couple of big plays in that game that stand out. If you can eliminate them, maybe things are a little bit different. Maybe they don't win, but it's a much more competitive game. That fumble we just spoke of. And, of course, we can't let Derrick Henry go 75 yards the first play of the game and go touch the goalpost. That's the other one. You got to get him on the ground. But I think things will be different. I think the defense will play better than they did that first game. But, again, my emphasis this week is this offense has to figure out a way to score points, because I see it being – if it's, a 1-point game in the 30s, that would not shock me.
That's just kind of it. Whether it's the Bills initially favored by 1 and then the action sort of shifts and the Ravens are favored by a point, it's pretty much a pick 'em game, right? It comes down to a big play or two, maybe who has the ball last. And maybe because you're so detailed in your descriptions and it's so inside and so interesting, right, from a football perspective, kind of sifting through all of that. From Jerry Ostroski's standpoint, looking towards this game, the Bills will or can win if they do what?
The Bills will win if they can find a way to get off the field 3 times, maybe a half, 4 times, maybe a half. I'm not saying you're going to stop them all the time. That would be great if they could. But you got to get off the field. Last time they played, Bills were 3 of 13 third down conversions. Ravens were 5 of 9. Sal, your voice is loud on X. You talk about third down conversions all the time. I do as well. I think it's a huge thing. You do all that work to get a team behind the chains, and then you give up a first down. It's demoralizing. I think that's one area is third down conversions. I think the Bills win if they can find a way to turn them over, and they've done a very good job of that. This defense lives and dies by the turnover. I believe Josh Allen's going to have a Josh Allen type game, not what he did last time they played, which was 16 of 29 for 180 yards passing and sacked 3 times. But the other thing is this, and when you look at games like this, and I talked a little bit about it last week on my show, but there's intangibles. There's things that are the big games a lot of times are determined on. Bass being 100% in field goals and extra points. Special teams not giving up returns, not giving up turnovers, not having fake punts completed on you. All those types of things, because when you look at it, guys, 70 plays on offense, 70 plays on defense, 35, 40 on special teams, you got about 180 plays a game. And out of all those plays, about 7 of them determine the outcome of who wins and who loses. And you just, the thing that makes it awesome is you don't know when those 7 plays are going to be. So those are kind of go along the intangibles. So I think Josh Allen playing well, this defense getting off the field a few more times than they normally do. I think turn them over and then just taking care of those intangibles. And you know what? The other thing is, and we need to do this because we have not done it lately in the last couple of years. Damn it, you did all that work in the regular season to play at home. Now play at home like you've been playing at home, which is you're 9-0 this season.
I was just going to ask.
And take care of that home field.
I was just going to ask you that. It's amazing. You read my mind. Is there pressure on the Bills this week? And I say that because they're playing. This is the 4th time now in the divisional round. They've been knocked out 3 years in a row, the last 2 at home. Do you think the Bills go into I just talked to 3 guys who claimed they don't feel any pressure. It's just another game to them, which I think is kind of BS. But what do you think? Is there pressure on this football team this weekend?
I think there definitely is. I think there's definitely pressure in that room. There's pressure on that head coach. There's pressure on the GM. There's pressure on the coordinators, Josh Allen, especially Josh, because this city looks at him as, he walks on water, right? I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's a lot of pressure on him because what's funny is even in the 4 Super Bowl years, there was that feeling amongst the nation that it was like, wow, man, these guys are resilient. They're determined. There's not that sentiment for this group. Nationally, from the beginning of the season to the Josh Allen's overrated to the MVP conversation to everything going on, they continually get disrespected. They continually get overlooked. And if they want to end that narrative, they need to win this football game this weekend.
Yeah, you know what? I think that has fueled certainly this quarterback. It's fueled this team prior to this,
right.
Whether it's moving on from Stephon Diggs and all those narratives and that we've seen kind of carry through the course of the season in the midst of the adversity they faced and some of the changes that took place and the success they have had. So, Jerry Ostroski, thank you so much for your time. As always, give us a quick update what you have going on as far as Overreaction Buffalo is concerned.
So Overreaction Buffalo tonight on YouTube. You can catch Joe and Spence on Hump Day Hotline, which is a show those guys have done for years. And then my show tomorrow, the Big O Show, will be 8 Eastern, 7 Central. We'll dive a little bit deeper into this rematch in Orchard Park this weekend. And then of course we'll have our Overreaction post-game show. I say 6:30 start, so it'll be right after the game. Usually if it's a 1 o'clock game, we'll still wait till 8. But it'll be right after the game, and we'll talk about the outcome, and hopefully it's for the guys in the red, white, and blue.
All right, Jerry.
Awesome. One of the best things of doing this show this year has been catching up with guys like you.
Yeah,
you, Fina. I mean, it's great. These are guys that we covered back in the day. It's been great to reconnect with you guys. So we really appreciate you being here again.
No problem at all. We appreciate same thing, catching up with you guys and just being a part of something that we all love. And that's Buffalo Bills football. It's been awesome. And I guess if you could say there was one positive that came out of COVID, it's all this, right? I mean, the content creation and Zoom meetings and all that stuff. It's been awesome to be able to chat with people across the country, and even if you're not in the same city, and it's been awesome.
Well, today, just another example. This show, just another example of the expertise, Jerry, that you bring. John Fina, terrific as well. Really good inside stuff for fans to consider and followers of this team looking toward a big-time heavyweight matchup on Sunday.
We don't get into a ton. We use it a little bit, but, by no means do we believe that analytics are the be-all, end-all. This is still a sport played by humans and consumed by humans, and it'll always be about humans. So, we like to be able to talk about it and, use our past experiences to kind of describe what's going on.
All right. Well done. Jerry, thank you as always. For Sal Majorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Jerry Ostroski, former Bills offensive lineman, Overreaction Buffalo, powered by Believe. I'm Adam Benini, WGRZ TV. Sports Talk Live Monday night, 7 o'clock on Channel 2. Thank you for being with us here on Believe in Bills.